Et je passe immédiatement la parole à Monsieur Marco Odoardi. Monsieur Marco Odoardi a une formation d'ingénieur électricien. Il a travaillé ensuite dans l'aérospatiale et dans les sociétés pétrolières, sociétés de conseil, pour aujourd'hui occuper le poste de Head of Global Warehousing and Distribution chez Ares Trading Merck. Et son thème de la journée, c'est l'impact de la COVID-19 sur l'industrie. Le thème était traduit, enfin le titre était traduit en français. Monsieur Odoardi s'exprimera en anglais.
Merci bien, Philippe. Je peux essayer aussi en français ou en italien si vous voulez. Moi, je pensais que c'est mieux de parler en anglais parce que je ne suis pas vraiment confiant de parler en anglais. Mais si vous voulez avoir des questions en français, ça marche. Hein? Je peux entendre. Let me share my screen, I guess, because I have my presentation here. Let me know when you see my screen.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you very
much. The floor is yours.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, yes, I'm Marco Odoardi, and Italian, leading the global distribution for Merck. And I recognize a lot of topics that you already introduced, Philip, into my presentation. So I wanted really to bring an experience from the field on what has been the impact of COVID in logistic industry, especially on the pharma industry. And first of all, to understand how this has been impactful and how this trigger complexity, let me maybe give you a bit of background of a word that is the logistic in pharma that is already complex per se in the day-by-day. Merck is a company, healthcare, with 6 billion sales per year, producing in 10 sites around the globe and distributing in more than 160 countries. So it's already complex per se, the network of distribution, especially if you consider that many of our products are lifesaver. So we cannot afford a stock out, we cannot afford to be late because, here we are speaking about life of our patients. It's complex per se because, well know how stringent are the GDP rules for the pharma industry. Cold chain, deep frozen chain, ambient chain. We have little freedom to select carrier partners, mode of transport. We have pretty stringent rules. And finally, every day we activate more than 10,000 shipping lanes around the globe. So it's already, an environment that is bringing into the day-by-day a certain level of complexity that is managed at a daily level. On this end of January, early February, arrived COVID. And I went a bit back to my notes from this moment, end of January, early February, to really make a sense of what did happen in a matter of few days, in some cases, even a few hours, that did destabilize the supply chain. So basically, in my notes, I was taking, the history of what was happening and saying, hey, look, first, second week of February, we started to see borders getting closed due to COVID. And this started in China, and big flows were going to China and then came to Italy and then center of Europe, then North America, then South America. And day by day was flowing into my Outlook news, tons of news regarding this country or the other country that was closing the borders, and the level of uncertainty on will we be able still to reach our client, in our patient, our hospital, our distributor in the various countries was pretty high. In the first hours and days was still unclear if the border were closed only for tourists, for passenger, for people, or also for goods. And the level of confusion around this, around the globe, was pretty high. Day by day was receiving or even hour by hour information about carriers, air carriers, grounding their planes. And still, you know, despite there are multiple transport modes around the globe, train, trucks, boats, etc., still the planes for the pharma industry are very important because of the lead time. In 24 hours, you can reach the patient, the hospital, and the distributor. And having the planes grounded was big level of concern. You might say, yes, but you know, the cargo planes were still flying. It's true, but at the same time, we know that many of our product, our goods, are still flying on the belly of the passenger flight. So we were observing and monitoring the capacity of the air freight industry going down every day, -10, -20, -40, -60. And this obviously was extremely concerning us. Warehouses. We have 80 warehouses around the globe. Many of them are managed by third-party logistic. We have been lucky. We didn't have case of infection in our warehouses, but many of our competitor or other companies were having cases with warehouses that were getting closed or not accessible for days, in some cases for weeks. Most probably you have seen in the newspaper of various cases in Italy, in France, of warehouses that have been closed to be disinfected for days. Obviously, in a pharma industry, every day you cannot have access to your goods. Your goods that are lifesaver is extremely concerning. People at home. Today, with the smart working, it seems almost normal to work from home. And by the way, I'm at home today, right? However, in logistics and in distribution is an issue. We didn't realize till the moment of COVID how many of our processes are somehow linked and connected to be physically in the office, even at document and paper level. In some cases, we discovered after years that indeed some documents that need to be legalized cannot be printed at home with a private printer, need to go through the company printer, or circulating document through the authorities. You cannot do from home, right? So this was also a challenge because from one day to another, we decided to move 600% of the supply chain from office to their home. So not an easy cookie to chunk. And finally, and maybe it was even our first concern, the guideline and the suggestion and the rules coming from the authorities were different. Were different almost country by country, authorities by authorities. And we had cases in which we were really resegmenting our supply chain according to where our trucks were going. Without mentioning countries or without mentioning authorities, we had cases in which one country was allowing us to bring our product there with the trucks. Others were asking papers at the borders saying those are lifesaver drugs to enter. Other countries, all of these countries in Europe, were saying you can enter, but you cannot stop by to put gasoline in the truck because otherwise the truck driver might get infected or might infect others. So you need to arrive, download into the browser and come back in one way, basically. So internally in Merck, we call it this scenario as an uncharted water to sail. So we went from an industrial process where we had extremely clear SOPs and process and rules to something that was having several uncertainties and did ask flexibility, still remaining compliant with the GDP rules. How did we react to it? Because jumping to the end of the story, we didn't lose any shipment, any distribution. We did reach the patient and the hospital and the distributor with almost the same service level than before. And this is already per se a fantastic achievement. But then how this has been achieved. Let me get a bit this page that was a bit the framework we did react with. That is classic crisis management framework. And I find this back many of the topics already mentioned by Philip. So the first reaction was to set extremely clear priorities to ourselves and to the full company. In a normal business, in the day-by-day business, a bit of conflicting priorities is healthy. Service cost, cash, quality, conflicting priorities help to take the best decision. However, conflicting priorities are also slowing down the decision-making process. So we needed to be extremely clear with the full organization and with all our employees that there was only one priority. And the only one priority was reach the patient with our drugs, with our treatment. Whatever it takes, almost the famous phrase from Mario Draghi, from the Central European Bank, whatever it takes, all the other priorities comes after. Still obviously staying compliant with all the rules, that's clear. So no trade-off on quality, no trade-off on taking risk. But for the rest, everyone in the company, 600% in the supply chain, did know the rule was whatever it takes, reach the patient. And this already did speed up in an important way our decision-making process and our internal activities. The second was delegate down, to make our decision-making pyramid as flat as possible. Again, it's very healthy in a company to have the possibility to escalate, to bring up a topic, to decide together, to reach consensus and move forward. However, we didn't have this privilege during the peak of the crisis. In many cases, our people were asked to take decision in a matter of hours, some cases in a matter of minutes. We were needing to find solution to reach countries and patients and hospital, and these options were scarce. What we decided, we aligned, is delegate down the level of decision and empower the right person in the right place. Allow them to take decision on 2 feet, sticking to compliance rules, that's clear, but taking quick decision. Internally, we almost used a motto between our people. That this was, please don't ask for approval, eventually ask for forgiveness. Take the decision, most probably will be the right decision. If this is wrong decision, we will understand, but don't lose time escalating decisions. And this was another big paradigm, a dogma change that did help a lot. And especially in the logistic industry, very often the competence and the knowledge is on the base of our organization. So very often it's really not needed to escalate up to the head of warehouse and distribution or the head of supply chain or the head of manufacturing. A third pillar of our way to react to the crisis was over-communicate. Communicate, 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 and again communicate. One of the biggest risks in a crisis is speculation. Everyone has a different version of the truth, coming from different sources, coming from different leadership preference, coming from different openness to risk, etc. And this is making extremely difficult then to take decision and to align the organization. So one of the first reactions was establishing one source of truth, establishing one spokesperson for the full chain, supply chain, regarding what was happening due to COVID and what was happening across various dimensions, not only on service, but also on cost, also on cash, also on quality, also on risk. And being sure that this information was, let me say, complete and somehow arriving to all the key important stakeholders, being sure that the spokesperson was able somehow to bring the right information to the head of manufacturing, but also to the CFO, also to the CEO, to the COO, to the country speakers, to the commercial, etc. And this went also with the frequency of that communication, because in the peak of the crisis, where things were happening very quickly, this communication did pass from being weekly to monthly, from weekly to daily, but even sometimes multiple times per day. Kind of a report, this is the situation, this is what is happening. Last point, and maybe it was even the most difficult, was build a transparency based on fact of what was happening. And maybe this was even one of the biggest challenge, based that during a crisis like the COVID-19, there is an overflow of information. Some of them relevant, some of them too high level, other too granular, risking to defocus the attention of the organization on what is really important, what really matters. So it did take a bit to find the right granularity of the information and that was satisfactory for the full company, giving the big picture, allowing to understand which action to take, but not, boiling the ocean, not jumping too much into the detail. Maybe let me spend a few seconds into it, because I brought a bit of sanitized example, disguised example of a kind of a dashboard that we were using internally. That might sound very simple, but indeed for us was extremely powerful to orientate the attention of the organization. You recognize here a classic supply chain, from production to distribution hub, to carriers, to port, airport, domestic and distribution, etc. Right? Here you find our nodes, disguised obviously, right? Where are our production site? Where are our distribution hub? Who are our logistic partners, etc. And everything in a matter of few hours and days did move from green, is in control, no worries, to yellow, pay attention, to red. Hey, here we have a problem, we need to intervene, right? And this was our way, kind of a dashboard, again, a war room, a dashboard, to really understand where to focus the attention of everyone into the organization, from CEO to COO to CFO, technology, information, communication, etc. So this was our way daily to understand where to bring the attention of the people and intervene. That was both by notes of our supply network, but also in terms of performance. And these colors are also pretty representative, because it's true that during the COVID crisis, a logistic department faced the biggest challenges on cost. But as I said, at the end of the day, service and quality did remain pretty well in control. And as Filippo was mentioning, cash is important, but obviously the increase of the lead time to reach the country is giving a challenge. So you have an impact on inventory. Again, very simple, but in a crisis, the simplification of the message most probably is one of the best answer. Before maybe opening to some question and answer or some debate, let me share also some reflection that we did internally in Merck when the peak of the crisis was over, right? Resilience. So we realized that we are more resilient than we think. So at the end of the day, the service level and the ability to reach the patient didn't decline. It was much more difficult, it was much more complex, but at the end of the day, we didn't have any stock out. And obviously this was our main concern, having lifesaver product. We know resiliency is a big priority for any supply chain. We always, in not crisis moment, we always believe we are less resilient than we are, but we had this good, let me say, not discovery, but this good feedback. We realized that, wow, we can be more resilient than we think. However, resiliency is never enough. We had our business continuity plan, but we realized that it's always difficult to capture black swan scenario in a business continuity plan. Frankly, business continuity plan, considering a worldwide pandemic, is a pretty extreme business continuity plan. So we did realize that we need even more than this. And Philip, feel free to stop me when I'm going too long with the time. 5 minutes? Okay, so I'm totally in. Third point, we realized that we can have fantastic tool, fantastic process, fantastic business continuity plan, but at the end of the day, it's been our people and the competence and the courage and the empowerment to really allow to absorb the shock of the logistic crisis. And this is a good reflection also in a moment in which we know there is big trend of digitalization, and we are spending time and money to look into how the tools can help us. But at the end of the day, in the biggest crisis of most probably of this century at the logistic level, have been the people that made the difference. People and partnership, logistic partners. In our supply chain, I already said we have 80 warehouses, 150 countries, etc. We have more than 100 logistic partners, smaller, bigger, etc. And the reason why we've been able to absorb the shock was the great collaboration with them. And one of the lessons learned is that even after the crisis, most probably our partnership did get even stronger. We are investing even more time than before on ensuring to really work open book with them and working win to win. This was the last point, Philip, so I'm done.
Okay, thank you very much, Marco. Thank you for the very interesting presentation. We have no question online, but est-ce que vous avez des questions dans la salle? Just a short question. So what are the reactions and attitude of your collaborator during this crisis period?
This is a fantastic question because we even did an engagement survey during the crisis. And what we did realize is that the engagement of the people was going even higher than before. Because the sense of purpose, the sense of the value of what we are doing, we are bringing medicine to patient, was re-energizing the people even more than before, right? And I've seen even the productivity went up, frankly, and even attention to cut every 5 minutes and be able to reach the patient 5 minutes before was even going higher. So, frankly, under this angle has been great.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure for us. Thank you.
Thanks.